You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Hey, that was a long one. I like that. Welcome to a special Valentine's Day edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and if you are listening to me right now, it probably means that you are spending Valentine's Day alone. No shame in that. Now I'm doing it now. I've done it many times before, and I do appreciate being a part of your solace. If you're sharing me with your significant other, then more power to you. There are about a million different directions I could have gone with this intro, but that was the cleanest. Big show today. Couple college basketball stories, couple baseball stories, a football story, and a hockey story. I think I'll start with college basketball and Colorado-Oregon, which was a really exciting game. A back-and-forth game. Colorado dominated the first half. It looked like they were going to make me look very stupid for picking Oregon, but Oregon came out like a bat out of hell in the second half. They outscored Colorado by 17, and they ended up winning. There were a few reasons why Oregon won this game. The first two are Peyton Pritchard and Will Richardson. Pritchard had a pretty good game. He had a double-double. He was not efficient shooting, 5 for 13. But, you know, if you're getting a double-double, you're doing something right. He's undersized at 6'2", so to get 11 rebounds is really impressive. He does have that Russell Westbrook-type ability to snatch rebounds. The second reason that Oregon won was my favorite player of theirs, Will Richardson. Now, he's been starting recently. He started the last 7 games, counting this one. But I'm telling you, he reminds me so much of Lou Williams, it's not even funny. He was the high man with 21 points. He almost had a double-double. He had 9 rebounds. Was really efficient from the field. It's really amazing how Dana Altman is coaching these guys. He runs a pro-style system. You've got to play good defense. You've got to position yourself well. You got to play the game the right way. And these kids are buying into it. They're succeeding. And Oregon can be a scary team in March. There's nothing stopping them from going on a big run. Although if they're going to go on a Final Four type run, they're going to need Chris Duarte to do more than what he did yesterday. He cannot shoot 3 for 10 from the field in March. He cannot shoot 1 for 6 from 3 in March. He had a terrible game, one of the worst games I've seen him have. It's okay if you have a bad game. You're human. You're going to have moments like that. But you've got to make sure that your teammates can bail you out. And his teammates did. They played stifling defense against Colorado. Tyler Bay and McKinley Wright IV only had 12 points combined. They shot a combined 5 for 16. When you can stop the two best players on an opposing team, you can afford to have one of your best players, probably your second best player, the order is Pritchard, Duarte, Richardson, have an off night. Now, Deshaun Schwartz did his thing, and Evan Batty and Shane Gatling played well. Batty had a double-double, Gatling had 11 points. You know, that's a good game for Gatling. He's not great. Colorado cannot afford a game like this in March. You cannot have Batty and Gatling be your second and third best players. It has to be Bay. It has to be Wright. This was not a good game for Colorado. It doesn't set them up well for March. It's got to scare you a little bit if you're a fan of theirs. There's really not much I can say positively about this game for the Buffaloes. Speaking of teams that I'm not high on at the moment, I'll preview WVU Baylor. I've talked enough about WVU the past few days. I really don't want to rehash it. Instead, I'll talk about Baylor and their stifling defense. Baylor is the kind of team that WVU wants to be. The thing is, they don't have the players for it. Guys like Jared Butler, Masio Teague, Freddie Gillespie, Davion Mitchell, Mark Vidal, and even Matthew Mayer are really, really good defenders. And Butler and Teague can get it done offensively too. Scott Drew is a really good coach. I've met his father. Tremendously nice guy. Scott inherited all of his father's coaching genes. I'm sorry to say that, Vanderbilt fans, but it's true. Bryce Drew did a terrible job for you. I mean, you can't go over in the conference. I understand that Garland got hurt last year, but my God. And Stackhouse hasn't looked much better. Look, I think Stackhouse will work out, but it has not been a good few years for the Commodores. Ever since Kevin Stallings left, that program has been on a downward spiral. But going back to Baylor, they have one of, if not the best defenses in the country. If you like defensive basketball, you're gonna love this game. If you like 85 to 84 college basketball games, you're not gonna like this game. I like defensive struggles. I feel like I'm more into those games than I am offensive explosions, just because you know that every basket is so important in a defensive struggle. An offensive explosion, okay, great, you just hit a shot. 2 seconds later, you know that the other team is going to hit a shot. Now, don't get me wrong, I like shootouts. I like 85, 84 games, but I actually find it a little easier to get really into a defensive battle than I do an offensive battle. I'm kind of weird like that. I'm not high on WVU this year. You know that. I think Baylor has a great chance of making the Final Four this year and possibly winning the whole thing. That's how dominant they are defensively. They really only had one bad game all year, and that was their second game of the season in Washington. And even then, they came very close to winning that game. They only lost by 3. I think Baylor's gonna defeat WVU handedly. In fact, it would not surprise me if that game ended up being a double-digit victory for Baylor. I don't think WVU will ever have a real chance of winning this game. Moving over to baseball now, and a couple outfielders signed, and I want to talk about them. The first one being Kevin Pillar. The Red Sox found their Mookie Betts replacement! It's Kevin Pillar! Yeah, he's gonna hit 300 with 30 home runs! Look, Pillar's a really good player. Very underrated. He's a guy who you can expect to hit 260, 15 homers, and 55 RBIs. He's very durable, never has injury concerns, and he plays a great, and I mean great, outfield. It doesn't matter where you put him. Center field, where he spent the bulk of his time, left field, or right field. He is one of the best defensive outfielders in baseball. He was actually 22nd in NL MVP voting this year. This is a great move for the Red Sox. It doesn't make up for trading Betts by any stretch, but at least they got a replacement that won't embarrass himself. Moving over now to the Indians signing Domingo Santana. And this is a deal that can max out at 2 years and $7.5 million. It's a bargain for a guy like Santana. This guy, just 3 seasons ago, hit 30 home runs and looked like he was going to be a great player for a long time for the Brewers. Him and Ryan Braun were going to lead the Brewers into the promised land. But then the Brewers traded for Christian Yelich and signed Lorenzo Cain. So Santana was limited to a part-time role. Then he got traded to the Mariners and may have been their best player. Now, I understand that being the best player for a team that went 68 and 94 isn't a good look, but he still had a good year. He got hurt a little bit, but he's still at 253, 329 on base, 21 homers, 69 RBIs. That's a good year. It's not great. And I don't think he'll ever be the outfielder that we all thought he'd be after 2017. But there's enough there to warrant this contract. Lord knows the Indians needed outfield help. Their outfield was set to be Oscar Mercado, Jordan Luplow, and Greg Allen. Maybe Franmil Reyes, too. It wasn't good. Now you can put Santana in left, Mercado in center, and Luplow in right. And that's an outfield that's looking a lot better. It's still not great by any stretch. In fact, it's probably average at best. But they won't embarrass themselves out there. The interesting thing about the Indians is what are they going to do with Francisco Lindor? Now, his name has been mentioned in trade rumors before, but they've kind of died down recently. Guys like Betts, Arenado, and Bryant have dominated the hot stove, while Lindor really hasn't. Whoever gets Francisco Lindor, whether he stays with the Indians or gets traded to another team, is getting one of the best players in baseball. I mean, you don't need me to extol his virtues. You know how good he is. I was scrolling through Twitter, and I passed a headline. I didn't click on it. I don't remember who tweeted it. But I passed a headline that said the Yankees shouldn't trade for Lindor. Maybe it was should. I don't remember. It linked the Yankees to Lindor, and it was just a Yankee fan page. But it got me thinking about Lindor on the Yankees because, I'm a Yankee fan, and I want the best players in baseball on my team. Lindor would obviously play short. Torres would probably slide over to second, and LeMahieu would slide over to third. It'd be interesting if the Indians would be amenable to an Urshela, Andujar, Frazier type trade. He'd be cheaper than Arenado. He may even be cheaper than Bryant. It makes sense to explore it. And I maintain that the Yankees should respond to the Mookie Betts trade. They were the World Series favorites. Now they're just the AL favorites. It's a push for who's going to win the World Series between the Yankees and Dodgers. I don't like those odds. I'd rather have the Yankees as World Series favorites. I don't think the Yankees are going to swing a big trade for an infielder, but I could dream, right? One thing that I saw on Twitter was, I think it was Major League Baseball published their 100 best players, and they had Garrett Cole ranked ahead of Jacob deGrom. And that got some spirited reactions, to say the least. Look, no one loves Garrett Cole more than me. I mean, some people go over Niagara Falls in a barrel. Garrett Cole goes up Niagara Falls in a cardboard box. So I may be a little biased here, but I don't think it's crazy. Look, wins still matter. The sabermetric community can say that they don't, but they do. Garrett Cole had 20 wins last year. Jacob deGrom has had 21 wins in the last 2 seasons total. He also hasn't pitched in the playoffs since 2015. And his last start in the playoffs, he wasn't good. He got shellacked by the Royals. I understand the argument for putting deGrom ahead of Cole. I understand the argument of putting Cole ahead of deGrom. These lists are designed to engender debate, and I think it's a healthy one. I think there's a real discussion there. Who's better, Cole or deGrom? I don't want to hear that deGrom won back-to-back Cy Youngs as being the ultimate reason why he's better. Alright? I don't think he should have won last year. Even 2 years ago, I was skeptical. Look, 2 years ago, I knew he was going to win. I wouldn't have voted for him. I still look at wins, but I knew he was going to win. Last year, I really didn't think he was going to win. I was stunned when he did. He only led the National League in one category, strikeouts, in a year where there were more strikeouts than ever before. I didn't think he deserved to be Cy Young winner. I got some heat for that from Mets fans, but I stand by it. Either way, if you were starting a franchise from scratch and you had to pick an ace, Garrett Cole or Jacob deGrom, you really can't go wrong. Moving on now to football, and we're going to get a lot more of these stories soon. The first notable name has been cut, and that is Josh Norman. This one was kind of expected. He was obviously due a lot of money, and he did not have a good year last year. He was on the outs in Washington. There were rumors that Bruce Allen was shopping him at the trade deadline, but obviously they weren't going to find anyone to take that contract. Looking to the future for Norman, he's 32 years old. He's nearing the end of his career. Another team will take a chance on him. They'll sign him to a 1 or 2 year deal, and they'll try to have him recapture the glory days of 2015. The thing with Norman is he had 1 elite season and 4 good seasons. He got paid $75 million off the 1 elite season. He was never worth that contract for the Redskins. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him, how much of a discount he'll end up taking. It wouldn't surprise me if he went to a Super Bowl contender. He's made his money. He's never gotten a ring. I think now he should go ring chasing and take whatever dollar amount he can get from a team like the Chiefs, the Niners, the Packers, whatever. Oh, actually, this just broke as I'm recording this. Speaking of the Redskins, they're going on a Valentine's Day massacre. They just cut Paul Richardson also. So Norman and Richardson are out the door. Ron Rivera is not taking any prisoners. He's getting rid of the overpriced guys. Look, Richardson got a big contract from the Redskins in 2018, and he never lived up to it. He was with the Redskins for 2 years, and he got hurt for both of them. And he only caught 4 touchdowns for the Redskins. 48 catches, 507 yards in 2 seasons. That's not going to cut it, especially when you're making $8 million a year. But where are the one-year wonders? There are going to be a lot of one-year wonders that are going to be massively overpaid next month. And it's just amazing how these NFL teams never learn. A guy like Paul Richardson in 2017 had a really good year for the Seahawks. He didn't have a great year. He had a really good year. He played in every one of their games, caught 44 passes for 703 yards and 6 touchdowns. And he had a good playoff run the year before. So the Redskins gave him $40 million, and they thought they were getting the next Art Monk. Well, he regressed to his pre-2017 form. This is what happens. You pay a guy based on 1 really good year, of course he's going to regress. It's regression to the mean. It's just a mathematical constant. Hell, even a guy like Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is going to be the first overall pick in this draft. This guy only has 1 elite year at LSU. Now, look, Burrow should be the first overall pick. There's no question about that. But the simple fact is, the Bengals are picking him just because he had 1 fantastic year. In a perfect world, he'd have had more. This guy was undraftable 12 months ago. The moral of the story is, beware the one-year wonders. And that doesn't just go for football. That goes for all sports. The last story that I want to talk about concerns the Wild firing Bruce Boudreau. He is the latest in a long line of NHL coaches to lose their job this year. Look, Boudreau has been a good coach in this league. He was really good in DC, and he was really, really good in Anaheim. With the Wild, though, it didn't work out. In a little over 3.5 seasons there, he only won 2 playoff games. This was a Wild team that was expected to do a lot better than they actually have. They spent a bunch of money on Zuccarello. They brought in the new GM, Bill Guerin. And I think everyone thought that the Wild would be in the playoff hunt. Well, it didn't shake out that way. The Wild are in 5th place in the Central Division as of right now. They're actually tied for 5th with the Predators, who shut out the Islanders yesterday. Embarrassed them 5-0. That doesn't serve as a wake-up call for Lamoriello to get his head out of his ass and actually do something. I don't know what will, but that's for another time. You got the sense in watching the Wild that Boudreau was disinterested. He was quitting on his team a lot. There was never that fire to come back when you were down. You always thought they were in danger of blowing big leads. And you could tell that he was burnt out. Quite frankly, I think the game has passed him by. He's a really good coach, and he'll be remembered as such. But I don't think he's going to get another head coaching opportunity. There are many more deserving candidates out there, like Peter Laviolette, Gerard Gallant, or Mike Babcock. And even then, Babcock probably isn't a sure thing. He's going to have to take a big pay cut from what he was getting in Toronto. And even then, look at how Toronto's done without him. Babcock's record this year was 9-10-4. Sheldon Keefe's is 21-10-4. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Wild. I would think that it would be a desirable job. You've got some really good players there in Suter, Parise, and Stoll. You've got a smart guy in Bill Guerin running things. The Wild have named Dean Evison their interim coach for the rest of the year. Evison was an assistant for the Wild for this season and last, but before that, he was head coach of the Milwaukee Admirals for the past 6 seasons. That's the AHL affiliate for the Predators. He did coach with Boudreau in DC, so that's how he landed the job as an assistant coach for the Wild. He was actually a pretty good player in the NHL. He was a 4th liner, physical player, and it's going to be interesting to see how that translates to the ice. I would think that he's going to get every opportunity to keep the job. If he does a good job with them, I don't mind him keeping it. But he's certainly going to have some stiff competition, because if I'm Guerin, I'm going after guys like Laviolette and Gallant. And I definitely would not be surprised if Doug Waite got an interview. Guerin and Waite played together for the Islanders. I know that the two of them are close. Waite was a good coach for the Islanders. He wasn't great. Trotz is a million times better. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if Waite got a second opportunity with the Wild. Going to be very interesting to see what happens with them. Hope you have a good weekend. Hope you have a good Valentine's Day. Look on the bright side. If you're spending it alone, you're not alone. You have me. I'll be suffering with you. Until Monday, I am Jacob Valk saying that baseball is the only field where a man can succeed 3 times out of 10 and be considered a good performer.